people who instinctively play the race card, and gentlemen. In the wake of Jared Loughner's rampage in Arizona recently, neo-Marxists all across these United States are calling for gun control. They're calling for uber-strict gun laws to control these angry white Tea Party activists. Make no mistake, folks, this is aimed at gun owners in general, but the specific target is white people, and in particular evil white Republicans and libertarians. Charles Blau of the New York Times recently editorialized for more gun control, but he forgets a very important point. Take away all the guns, and all you do is empower the black market. The only people who will have guns are those who don't care about gun laws one way or another. Don't have a gun, they'll use their fists, lead pipes, or knives too. If a hardened criminal in prison can make a shank out of a styrofoam cup and or a pen, it's not that hard to create a homemade stabbing weapon. I can reference the war on drugs as proof that an all-out war on guns will not have positive results. The war on drugs has failed, the war on guns will fail too, and the people it will hurt the most are those who are law-abiding citizens that live in or near high-crime areas. This begs the question, who are the most violent people in America? First, I need to mention in these United States, in 2005, there were 5,346 murders committed with a knife, blunt object, or other weapon. They didn't need a gun. In 2004, it was 5,487. So what about homicide rates by race? If we're going to figure out who the violent people are in this country. If you're a politically correct libtard, you might not want to hear this. If we need to take guns away, let's figure out first who the most violent people are. In 2003, the homicide offending rate per 100,000 population for whites was 3.5 per 100,000 homicide offending rate. It was 3.6 in 2004 and 3.5 in 2005. Per 100,000 people only, 3.5 homicides were committed by white people. What do you think the comparable homicide rate is for blacks? Pause the video and think for a moment if you need to. Ready? In 2003, the rate of homicides committed by blacks per 100,000 was 25.3. It was in 2004 it was 24.1, and in 2005 it was 26.5. That's over 7.5 times the rate for whites. Oh my gosh, I'm a racist just for saying that. That includes homicides with a firearm, death by strangulation, lead pipe, car, knife, or whatever you can think of. The rate of homicides per 100,000 committed by whites age 18 to 24 averaged 23.35 from 2002 through 2005. 23.35. The rate for black men aged 18 to 24 averaged 194.95 during the same time frame. That's more than 8 times the average for whites the same age. Oh my gosh, we need gun control for black people. So if we're going to take guns away, and I should also mention the vast majority of blacks who do bother to vote are Democrats. If we are going to take guns away, let's take them away from angry, violent, liberal, black Democrats. It's patently obvious from the statistics, the vast majority of violence in this country is being perpetrated by black people, and unfortunately it's usually against other black people. I suppose that's Sarah Palin's fault too. Wait, those stats come from a time before Palin was even governor of Alaska, and even after she was relatively unknown anyways, before the summer of 2008. That brings me to my next point. What if Sarah Palin, or a prominent Tea Party activist, had said the following, quote, "Before the Tea Party can mobilize for collective action, they have to develop a proud and angry identity and a set of claims that go with that identity. They have to go from being hurt and ashamed to being angry and indignant. An effective movement of the Tea Party and limited government will have to look something like the strikes and riots that have spread across Greece in response to the austerity measures forced on the Greek government by the European Union because they spent too much. Or like the student protest that recently spread with lightning speed across England in response to the prospect of greatly increased school fees. End quote. Would she be accused of violent rhetoric? I'd say. Actually, she didn't say that, but if she did, the Marxist segment of the Democrat Party would have a cow. They would accuse Palin of inciting violence. It was actually Frances Fox Piven, and she said this, quote, before people can mobilize for collective action, they have to develop a proud and angry identity and a set of claims to go with that identity. They have to go from being hurt and ashamed to being angry and indignant. An effective movement of the unemployed will have to look something like the strikes and riots, where things were burned down, that have spread across Greece in response, blah, 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 etc. Interestingly enough, a case brought against a KKK member years ago for supposedly inciting violence would clear Palin and Piven of inciting violence. The legal standard for incitement was spelled out by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1969 case of Brandenburg versus Ohio. A local KKK leader was convicted of criminal syndicalism for advocating the duty, necessity, or propriety of crime, sabotage, violence, or unlawful methods of terrorism as a means of accomplishing industrial or political reform. Brandenburg had been filmed at a KKK rally where he said, "We're not a revengent organization, but if our president, our Congress, our Supreme Court continues to suppress the white Caucasian race, it's possible that there might have to be some revengeance taken." He also spoke of his desire to return blacks, to whom he referred by a now unprintable 6-letter slur, to Africa and Jews to Israel. In a unanimous unsigned opinion, the justices overturned Brandenburg's conviction. The constitutional guarantees of free speech and free press do not permit a state to forbid or prescribe advocacy of the use of force or of law violation except where such advocacy is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. So even Frances Fox Piven, wanting riots like there were in Greece where buildings were burned down and at least one person died, she probably wouldn't even go. She wouldn't get convicted. Ergo, none of the Tea Party would get convicted. So you just lost your entire argument right there. Sorry. We all remember those Twitter posts wishing death upon Sarah Palin. I can sum up Piven's logic in short. Mobilize the idiots to vote for the Democrat candidate who will give you the biggest handout from the public treasury. Intimidate politicians with mass protest to increase the specter of the welfare state. Piven was also one of the major factors in getting motor voter passed, a policy that makes every welfare office and every driver's license station a voter registration station. She had been promoting that since the 1980s. Some local schmuck from New Jersey named John Atlas was recently pushing the leftist hypothesis that the right is responsible for our partisan political climate. He was interviewed by a group called IndictBreitbart.com. That's interesting. The Indict Breitbart campaign is run by Velvet Revolution. One of their co-founders is Brett Kimberlin, a convicted domestic terrorist. Oh, the irony. We also have Mike Malloy, again, wishing it could choke Rush Limbaugh to death. In conclusion, folks, if we are to take guns away, we should take them away from the most violent segment in our society, black people, and more specifically 18 to 24-year-old blacks. Remember, most blacks vote Democrat. Lastly, the only reason the left is trying to paint everyone on the right as a racist or an inciter of violence is because they want to shut up the opposition. They can't compete in the arena of ideas, so you're all racist and you're all inciters of violence. Except when Frances Fox Piven says something like that. That's different. Have a nice day.